Okay, so I've got an older Kenmore 70 series top load wash machine. This thing is probably 20 plus years old. Been a great machine. Really the only thing I've ever had to do to it was the our motor drive coupling. I had to replace it a couple times. But other than that, I've had no issues. But recently it developed this issue where we normally use this ultra clean setting, and it'd get almost to this first rinse cycle and it just stopped moving. And you know, we come back half an hour later and got a tub full of water. It's just stuck. And I thought maybe it was something to do with this timer switch. I know on a dryer that I repaired in the past, it had kind of some plastic ramps and things to engage different contacts at different times. And I thought maybe something like that might be happening with this, that it's just something's worn out inside the switch. But this is an older model, so it doesn't have a lid lock or anything like that. And the lid switch is right here. And so there's this little piece that will push on the lid switch. And I noticed that if you push this down with a pencil or a wooden dowel or something, that right now you don't hear anything, but when I push it down, you will hear the timer start going. And so that timer motor is actually running in there now. So that tells me it's an issue with this switch. Now, I've seen some videos that you can bypass this switch, but I want to try to figure out exactly what the issue is, if there's just something bent out of place in the switch or what. Because if you push it down far enough with a pencil, it works, but the length of this knob doesn't let it work. So, and it's kind of an intermittent issue because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So, I'm going to tilt my panel up here. It normally has these little trim pieces. You grab back here, kind of flex it up, and then pull this out. I'll do that for each side. And then there's a single Phillips head screw on each side. They look like this. And then this entire, close the lid. Then this entire panel should tilt back. Okay, so you can see these little teeth slide into the cabinet there, so you have to kind of pull it back and then pivot it up. There are these little white hinge pieces, and you can see this side has a screw in it. This side is broken, so normally this panel would just hang like that, but mine's gonna end up falling. So right here is the connector for this switch. We've got 3 wires coming in, and it looks like we got this green with yellow stripe, and you can see another green with yellow stripe comes over and just ties to ground. So our other 2 are probably the leads coming from the switch. You can also see there's 2 little Phillips screws, and then if you reach in under here, you can actually feel the switch. So I'm going to pull those 2 screws and pull this entire switch out and see if I can get it out. Okay, so I've got my 2 screws out. You can see the switch hanging down right here, and try not to drop my phone in this tub of water. But here, you can see the wires coming out of the switch here, and they run into that black tube, and it's a split tube, and then there's that little clip holding it in place, and they run around back, and there's the connector that I've just squeezed these little clips on the side to pop it out of the cabinet. So I'm going to try to get that out, and we'll go from there. I've got this pulled out far enough, and I can see that this case is actually split a little bit, and so it's requiring, there's a little more movement in here than needs to be. So I'm going to just squeeze this back together, and it doesn't look like I can squeeze it back together, but right in there you can see this switch is actually coming apart. So I don't know if it's broken or if it's just come unclipped from slamming the lid down or, you know, dropping the lid in place. So that's definitely our problem. That's why I can push it down farther with a pencil and it works, but the lid won't actually activate it. So I'm going to see if with 2 hands if I can get this figured out, and I'll come back. Okay, so these switches are originally glued shut. I don't know if you can see it, but down there in between this metal piece and the gray plastic, there's some like black adhesive sealant. It's supposed to keep it sealed up, watertight. This thing doesn't see much water, just a little bit splashing on it. But to hold it tight, I just used some stainless steel wire wrapped around there. It's not going to get in the way of anything, and now the switch activates in a normal range of motion. So I'm going to screw this back in place and get the wiring hooked up back there again and try it out. Okay, so I've got the lid switch back in place. Wires are hooked back up. It's plugged into the wall. And now let's close the lid and see what happens. So you can hear that the lid switch is now activating again because the little timer motor started running. And so that was our issue. It just, the switch had started to split apart. It wasn't making contact. It was thinking that the lid was open so the timer wouldn't run. So now these lid switches aren't very expensive. They're not hard to replace. 2 screws, one wiring connector, and some clips that you gotta put the wiring in. But I'm not a fan of throwing away a perfectly good used part when some simple stainless wire fixes the issue. So I will post a link to this lid switch down in the description in case you have this same model and you're having issues with the lid switch. But this should get us going and probably last quite a long time. So if that helps you, great. I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. If you like what I do, make sure to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, we'll catch you later.